Welcome to a very unspecial version of the Purple Rock Survivor podcast. I'm John, the captain of Team TV, the cheering squad of one of Survivor's one true kings, Tony Vlachos. And my co-host and fellow mourner this week is Andy, and today we're talking the premiere of Survivor Game Changers. Andy, we've now seen 2 hours of this season. Has the game been changed yet?
No, I think it's actually pretty standard issue stuff. Thank you to everybody who will tolerate content from us for another hour or so this season. But, we are talking about 2 separate episodes and very much. And also thank you to everybody who was excited about the bonus podcast we did earlier this week. That really is gratifying. Although also, for someone like me, maybe stings a bit that people weren't like, oh man, I really wish Andy was here.
Yeah, little shot to the ego, right?
Yeah, I know. But, we'll see. We'll see when, the hype for this episode and people will be like, finally.
I'll spoil this now. Like, if you're not upset about Tony going home, this podcast is going to be rough for you.
Yeah, and honestly, I try not to be that guy. I've raved over episodes that have sent home people that I've really liked. My favorite season, of Survivor is the one where my favorite player is pre-merge. But I don't know if it's because I didn't like the results of these 2 episodes or if there were other reasons, but I think my general impression of the premiere is that was okay.
So I'll say this. Nice introduction. Like, we got an awesome reintroduction to these people, got a lot of confessionals, and they led with the heaviest hitters, which was key. That's gonna get you hyped for the season. You're seeing the biggest names first, and first episode was okay. I kind of felt like the Sierra writing was on the wall there. And then episode 2 was just, well, I guess, I don't know that you call it episode 2, but the second hour was whole roller coaster of emotions there.
Yeah, I think it is officially called episode 2. And, I think the issue, again, maybe it's just sour grapes that I do not like the results. But, I think in both cases, it was just, we got 2 basically unanimous votes, and I think in both cases, the person going home was going home for a long time. These weren't last minute scrambles. The varying successes of the red herrings was a little different. But in the end, they kind of felt red herring-y. But as you say, it's great to have Survivor back, and when it kicks off, it shows everything why we, value this show so highly, because they do such a great job in setting the scene, setting the stage, reintroducing characters,
One thing that was actually impressive, and normally I don't, applaud this sort of stuff, but I felt like the music really got me hyped. I thought that was really good audio, just, made it feel really monumental that this is all happening. I thought it hyped me up.
If you can't get hype for game changers like these, what could you get hype for? And obviously in that intro, lots of funny moments of, some of you made very small moves and,
Yes, that was fantastic.
So we are obviously in good hands. I'm also not negative towards the season, even though, it started off, lopping off, I'd say a mid-major and then a major. But I think we still have a deep pool of talent to go from, and I guess let's get into it. Let's start with the first boot.
Yeah, why not? I kind of felt like, I predicted Sierra as a potential first boot. It just seemed so obvious looking at that tribe. Like, man, I feel like she's gonna struggle. I could see there might have been other options, but it wouldn't remotely surprise me if she was the first boot, and so that's why I picked her. It seemed like it was going to be tough for her.
Yeah, and a lot of people picked her. And frankly, if you look at my predictions, and in my prediction, what I wrote down, I even mentioned her. And what we discussed with her, it was leading to a Sierra thing. I just didn't want it to be her, so I, laid out a possible scenario for it being somebody else. But the same deal. Just looking at what that tribe was, what their needs were, and what her reputation going in. I don't think she had much of a chance here, which is what makes the episode, once they kind of introduce everybody and we've spent a little bit of time in both camps, possibly not as much time in the other camp, although in the preview alone, we were like, okay, Mana tribe is hot, Nuku tribe is whatever.
Let's not waste our time over on the other tribe here.
But once it kind of got down to it, it's it seemed like they decided on Sierra, day 2 at the most. And the valiant of the attempts of the show to be like, oh no, maybe it's Michaela was, no, that wasn't, nobody was buying that.
Yeah. And this is the sort of thing, when you have this basically all-star season, it's not an insult that she went home early. It doesn't reflect on her as a player. I saw that tribe breakdown and went, oh, this is not a good situation for her. Because, you know, we've talked so many times, luck plays a big role, and she's a good player. She got a horrible hand dealt to her this time.
Yeah, and it's just like what Tony said when they were picking her as a target. We need to go after the weakest threat. Now, obviously, The weak part isn't a big compliment, but what it means is somebody who's threatening that we can do without. And yeah, that was Sierra. That's what Base has done most people's predictions. And as it happens, some people want to frame it as, see, she sucks. Some of it, because they don't like her, and some of it because they don't like me. But it's like, no, I mean, I don't honestly think that there was much she could have done one way or another. I'm not going to completely absolve her. I think you could point to the moment where, and obviously the show really tried to point to this moment, and like, oh, she's throwing out names. By all indications, she was not throwing out Tony's name. That name was out there. And the reason why you can believe this, not necessarily from her own exit interviews, because those aren't canon, but press were on hand for that segment at camp. So Gordon Holmes, backed her up. It's like, yeah, no, they were talking about Tony before you got there. So she wasn't the one who started that. And also it's like, of course they were talking about voting out Tony. You talk about voting out Tony. If they weren't talking about voting out Tony, that is a complete dereliction of duty of, everybody there. And, further, what happened afterwards, clearly this is not like a bridge too far. Like, oh my God, how dare you talk about voting out Tony? We need to get rid of you. But when she then talked about Caleb, which came about because they were afraid, what if Tony has an idol? So she put out that name. I think that killed any chance she had of maybe possibly getting a target in front of her. But I think she was working uphill in a significant manner, for all the reasons why we predicted her. And, if you look at pregame press, people like Malcolm and Michaela and Haley, all identified her as somebody they didn't want to work with. I think it's just, they wanted to get a big hit, but they didn't want to get the biggest hit to begin with, which is what I said in my own prediction. Nobody wanted to go big game hunting right away because you want to feel it out a bit. You want to see where people are at, trust and loyalty is proven at Tribal Council. She was an easy target of value.
Yeah. And when you can get consensus early on, I mean, it's at that first vote, everybody is anybody but me, So if you can get people to agree, you're generally not going to push back too hard on that first vote.
Yeah, and to the people who are like, she should have done something. It's like, well, if you just flip to the other side, and we'll talk about this in a minute, it kind of looked like Cirie was doomed. And if she would have went home, nobody would have been like, Cirie sucks. It's just one of those things, a target that is dangerous in some level, and maybe Sierra isn't dangerous to win the entire game, but she's dangerous to eliminate you if you are somebody looking to win the game. Right. That also isn't particularly useful in this stage of the game. Yeah, it seems like the right target. So I don't think she really ever had a chance this season. She probably should have sat it out, and that's the way it goes.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand, because I think this came up with Aubrey too. Like, I don't feel like this is the right time for Aubrey to come back, but when you get the call, do you know that you're ever going to get it again if you say no? So I can understand coming back. I don't know that it was the right time for her. And again, once you see where she landed, it's like, well, okay, yeah, you've got a huge uphill battle ahead.
Yeah, land on the other tribe, and maybe for one, maybe she doesn't go to Tribal Council, and that's the big thing. Mana had about 3 people, maybe 4, who needed to avoid going to the first Tribal Council. Now, the good news is for the other 3 people, right? But, it's just like they needed just some time, and she had none. But also I think she had, more friendly faces over in there that maybe she could have, when everybody's like, hey, why not Sierra? They would have been like, maybe somebody else. Whereas here, they're like, okay, sure, Sierra, that sounds good. And it wasn't even that she was throwing out names, Tony didn't even know his name was being brought up by her when he suggested, maybe Sierra, because it didn't fit into his plans. So, tough luck for her. I think all she could have done was be better at the puzzle.
Well, since you brought up her history as one of the things that they might target her for, let's do this. Because we're going to do this for the rest of the season, because these are all returning players. Whenever someone gets voted out, let's discuss what the highlight of their Survivor career has been. And so, because you have always been on board the Ciara bandwagon, I'll let you go first. What's your Ciara highlight of all time?
I think it's pretty easily when she forced the rock draw. And I know it's a moment that the haters will be like, oh, it's nothing. She should have done it. Yeah, she should have just voted with them a week before. There's two things about that. One, maybe not, and I'll get into that in a second. For two, that's immaterial. For me, it's not about whether it was the most optimal move. What it is, and, I'm not even original, Probst will say this. She was presented with the almost incontrovertible fact that she was on the bottom of Alliance near the end of the game, but not at. And instead of being like, well, I guess I'm kind of just screwed here and I better hope that it works, she decided to do something about it. She decided that I'd rather lose now than lose later. And for everybody who's like, whatever, that's no big deal. It really actually is pretty rare. Most people just kind of ride it out, including some of people's favorite survivors ever who've put themselves in situations where, well, okay, this guy's better than me. He'll probably beat me, but maybe he'll get eliminated. And maybe those people don't get any votes in the final tribal council. So it is a big deal to do that, even if it was, as people think, a little late. Now on that, I'm not sure the conventional wisdom that she should have done it, the tribal council before, is actually that sound. Now, it would have probably been more successful in getting rid of Tyson. Unless he would have caught wind of it and played his idol. Sure. But all that would have been is going from the 4th place in Tyson's alliance to 4th place in Hayden's alliance. Mm-hmm. It wasn't really an optimal time for her to flip then either. It would have probably been, a better look for her if, it didn't take the absolute last second of tribal council to realize that were the position she was in. But again, the week before, I don't think that would have helped her win anyway. It would have helped probably Hayden win. And, to the people who say, well, Hayden deserves the credit. Well, I mean, sure, he argued, he switched her mind, but it was her decision. And it's a decision that very few people have made. And we have that evidence because it was like, the first time in 12 years that we'd ever gone to Rocks? Yeah. So that, for me, that's her highlight.
For me, it's the time that she helped Tyson win Survivor.
Nice.
No, you're right. It's the Rock thing. I mean, it's really everyone, or not everyone. Probst, let's be honest. He hypes up the voting out her mom thing. That was basically immaterial. The rock draw thing, it takes guts. I mean, everybody can hold in the back of their mind, well, things might break my way. Maybe I win an immunity. Maybe someone's willing to move later with me.
Yeah, maybe Tyson loses at Final 4 and suddenly I'm in Final 3.
Right.
And then losing to Jervis probably, but.
Sure. But, a lot of people are willing to play that conservatively and just hope that things break their way. She took it into her own hands and it didn't work out for her. But, it was worth the shot.
And I think that more than anything is why she's been brought back two times.
Yeah.
Because you see it, like why Probst keeps picking her to win and stuff, because it's like, I'm sure when he was watching, it's like, all right, here we go. I've heard this story a million times before, I've been sitting here at Tribal Council so many times and people like, you are on the bottom, make a move. And they're all just like, meh. I mean, frankly, like Jervis and Monica should have made a move, They ended up getting destroyed, Stephen Fishback probably should have done something against JT, even though it would have been a tremendous risk to do so. It's like, well, risk now. And maybe you set yourself up for a win, or risk not at all, and you probably lose. And, for me personally, before Ciara had ever done that, that's my philosophy, that risk is inherent throughout Survivor, and trying to avoid risk isn't the same thing as avoiding risk, because it doesn't necessarily double your chances. Now, the counter argument is, sometimes you can just hang around and things break your way and you win.
We have seen examples of that.
Yeah, but that's a pretty long odds play too. I would rather be the person who's like, screw it, I'm going to try to win. Particularly because if she doesn't go to Rocks at that point and just hangs on, I don't think she has a shot at winning in front of the jury. I think if she, if Tyson would draw on that rock, Ciara suddenly becomes like a favorite to win. Maybe below Hayden, maybe he gets a lot of credit, but now she has something and people look at her differently.
And not only that, if Hayden is the favorite, then she aligns everybody else next vote. Hey, now we got to get Hayden out.
Yeah, she would have had options if Tyson draws that rock. And it didn't, because that's what happens when you take a shot. So yeah, for me, that's her biggest move, and biggest highlight. Whatever, voted out her mom. I hinted at it, so I figured we should get into it. Was Cirie doomed? Did you see any chances for her where she was at Nuku?
Oh, she is really lucky that they did not lose that first challenge, because I mean, I just feel like from what we saw, there was no way she was surviving a vote that first time. I'm sure she had a few people that would consider working with her, but again, it's the first vote. I don't think people are going to stick their necks out to save her. You know, if her name pops up enough, you know, and you're Zeke and you're a big Cirie fan, you want to work with her, are you going to say, no, guys, let's not do that? No, you're just going to say, all right, well, there's like 6 people willing to go Cirie. Screw this. I'm not going to try to push back. I'll just go on board with this.
Yeah, like, and the show was like, you know, so they set up that conflict between her and Ozzy. Yeah, as people pointed out, they're probably right that it, you know, is going to pay off down the line. Although, you know, the one word of caution is, how much did Steven versus Savage ever pay off? You know, sometimes they just show the actual conflicts that are happening as they happen. And, you know, if you've got Ozzy and Cirie, and then, you know, JT is kind of a peripheral, that's probably a story you want to tell, whether it pays off or not. These are your heavy hitters. But, yeah, in doing that, you know, the next part of the story is, okay, let's see Cirie work and work her way up from this. And what we saw is just a bunch of people like, oh yeah, no, sure, okay, yeah, Like, nobody was giving her anything, and to your point, like, yeah, sure, I'm sure Zeke wouldn't mind working with her, maybe even really like to. There are probably scenarios where Debbie would work with Cirie. Yeah, I think, Ty might have, but none of them were going to be like, okay, yeah, let's do this. I'm risking my neck for you. No, if they would have gone to tribal council in either of those 2 votes, I think it's as unanimous for Cirie as it was for, you know, Sierra and Tony.
Yeah. The nice thing with the Cirie plot that we got, though, is you see her having this conversation with Ozzy, and it looks like, from what we see, oh man, he fooled her, because we got to see Ozzy saying, yeah, I'm not on board, and then we see him talking to JT, he's not really on board with her, and Cirie thinks that he is, and you're thinking, oh man, Cirie's lost it. And then you get the scene with Ty, and she corners him, she reads him, and then, oh, Cirie just shook the rust off. Cirie is back.
Cirie. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously reading Ty is not like the hardest book in the world.
Sure. Yeah. Sometimes you take some practice rounds.
But no, I mean, I think we saw like Cirie working her social game, trying to find contacts. And, you know, in contrast to maybe Sierra, where we didn't see anything like that. But, you know, to my point, is like, both seem immaterial. I think they were both in similar situations, or it didn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're as a player as great as Cirie, who is, you know, I don't want anybody to think I'm crazy, light years better player than Sierra. Sometimes you just, you know, the stack is, you know, high against you. And you can contrast that with probably what we're going to talk about next, the way Sandra was able to flip a situation in her favor.
Whew. All right, so we talked about it earlier, but man, what a roller coaster. For about 4 glorious minutes, we had possibly the most amazing alliance of all time. Tony, Sandra, Malcolm, Aubrey, and who cares who else? Because those 4 were the principles of an alliance, and it was amazing and immediately taken from us, and I blame Troy entirely.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's so great because also it's like, yeah, all these people we want to work with, but also it's like, this is the path, this is what we saw. To all the people who were like, Tony's just gonna go away right away, which, yeah, you like to say you're right, but you're also kind of wrong. He survived a vote. Sandra is completely doomed. It's like, no, they're doing it. This is how you do it.
Yes, yeah, and they laid it out. They said, you know, here's the logic. We're big targets. If we use each other as shields, we can get far. And you're like, yes, they get it. They're going to do it.
Don't let those also-ran mediocrities determine this game.
Yeah. Man, you could see the light shining down, and just we're basking in the glow of the glory that's happening. And immediately it's robbed of us. It was gone so fast. Like, I was tweeting about how happy I was, and it was ending as I was tweeting.
Yeah, and then you get a situation where this entire second half of this episode is one of Tony, Sandra, or Cirie is going home.
Oh man, and like I said, what a roller coaster, because you find out, okay, Cirie's tribe is safe. Oh good, Cirie's not going, oh wait a minute, if Cirie's not going home, now we're gonna have potentially Sandra or Tony going home, and obviously, it is devastating to lose Tony, basically the premiere episode of the season. He wasn't the first boot. But if you have to lose Tony, it would have felt so cheap if it was almost anyone else taking out Tony. But because it's Sandra, I don't want to say that I can take it. It just hurts less because it's like, yeah, that was a quality opponent for Tony to lose to.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like, Troy and his buddies, ganging up or anything like that. And yeah, I guess it's the way it just had to be. And frankly, for me, for the whole 2 hours, it's like, okay, now it's Sierra or Cirie. Oh, wait, they're presenting Michaela as an option? I don't want that either. It's
right.
Like, why couldn't you guys just listen to Sierra and get rid of Caleb? That would have been fine. And it's just like, that shows, that this is what the flip side of, these all-star seasons are. And probably, it maybe gave me a taste of what a lot of other people feel negatively towards other past all-star seasons. They're like, all these people I loved kept going home. And I'm like, I don't know. There were other people who were doing pretty well, I thought. And yeah, I can also comfort myself with, my favorite player has not been taken out because, they haven't established themselves yet. That's the beauty of being a front runner. But no, and that was just the feeling. And I agree with you. I think by the end, I think I was probably just hoping Sandra prevailed. For one, I think we get a bigger kick out of Sandra, doing well because of, maybe the people that it bothers. For two, much like Sierra, it just kind of felt like Tony was doomed anyway. A lot more of it was of his own doing, but I still think if you stretch the season out, nobody was going to let him succeed.
And so that's basically my argument as well. It's devastating to lose him, but of those two, inexplicably, Sandra probably has a better shot at winning. Not because either of them is a better player than the other, but just because of perceptions. There are people who still think there was, I'll get into it in a minute, but Troy had a bonus scene this week.
Oh,
you know what he said?
I know, because I wouldn't watch a Troy bonus scene. Man, you're a masochist.
But exactly, someone decided, no, you have to watch this, and sent it to me because, at first I assumed this was trolling, and I respected it, but I was clued in to what it said, so I'm like, alright, I want to watch this. So he says, I'm out here and I see what a good player Sandra is. I never would have expected that, and now I see it. Oh, she's got all these great social skills. She can talk to anybody, and I'm not afraid to take her to the end, though, because I'm going to sit at the end and I'm going to say, come on, you're really going to give her 3 wins? Yes, they are. If you're sitting next to her, they are.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the advantage that, Sandra carries, over Tony or over a lot of people, is that everybody thinks that they can win. Like in the end, it's like, get me to the end, I can win. There's so many delusional people. There's been people who, were drawing completely dead as they go into the finals and they still feel confident they're going to do it because, we feel better about ourselves, especially if we are reality show contestants, right?
Right.
So they're not afraid of losing to her in the end. Obviously there's some, like, Parvati was able to see that, but with Tony, it's not that you're afraid you're going to lose to him in the end. You're afraid he's going to take you out before you get there.
Exactly.
And I think Sandra doesn't carry that same fear. Sandra doesn't take people out. She'll just be there. She'll do what, anybody but me. No, she just took somebody out, man.
Yeah. And so this was the interesting thing. There was a TV writer this week, and I'm blanking on who it is. I want to say it's like Feinberg, maybe?
Yeah, Daniel Feinberg.
Yeah. So
Hollywood Reporter.
Sorry, he had a great comment about that. And he was saying, this is weirdly the season where people finally are respecting Sandra's game. And it's a whole new animal because part of what has helped her before is that people didn't take her seriously. And now people legitimately take her seriously. And she's exploiting the fuck out of it. And it is amazing to watch.
Yeah, no, I mean, the question always, is like, why would Sandra come back for another time? How do you improve on twice? How would you ever win 3 times? Her second time, she had the benefit of being one of those overlooked winners, right? And then playing with somebody who was controlling the game who barely recognized that she had won the game. I think intellectually somebody told Russell Hantz that she had won, but whatever. That must have been a crazy season. Stupid people win all the time. Look at my last season. If he was even aware.
Right.
So she had that her second time. This time she doesn't have that, right? You know, whether you respect her wins or not, you realize that she's a 2-time winner. And I think, intentionally or not, what she's done is like, okay, if I'm a big threat, I'm going to play like a big threat. And now people will keep me as a shield, as opposed to keeping me around as a number, as somebody who, anybody but me, I can get Sandra to vote with us anytime we want to. Now, Sandra Diaz Twine, one of the worst challenge performers in the history of Survivor, is possibly the biggest shield on this cast. And I think it could mean that she could go far.
It's so glorious. I love it. It's like the opposite of a meat shield. And I tried to think of like a good term for it, and I couldn't think of one, but it's amazing. You wouldn't think that, you know, Sandra, who doesn't seem all that complex of a player, she's adding new layers to her game. This is like, you know, LeBron is suddenly like, nah, I've mastered the inside game. Now I'm going to take my game beyond the 3-point line. Like, it's so fun to watch her game evolve.
Yeah, and finish my point. Like, why come back? It's like, well, now she gets to play a different way, and just to prove that she can. Yeah, and for people like us, for people who aren't idiots, we didn't need Sandra to prove nothing, right? We knew, you could watch, you can just see. But it's like, hey, sure, I'll go out there and I'll swing for the fences a couple times. If somebody's going to try me, I'll take them out. Which, frankly, she's done in the past. People this week will want you to believe that she hasn't. She called her shot when she took out Coach. She called her shot and took out Burton. She just does it she did it in a more subtle way, in a way that couldn't be traced back to her. And people are like, oh, Russell wanted to do it because, the Men's Alliance. It's like, yeah, that's why she knew she had an opening. That's how she works. She sees the opening. Now I'm just going to do her out in the open, and I'm going to take out the biggest target in this game, and then I'm going to yell at him on the way out. And now and people think, oh, she's doomed. And it's like, well, maybe, but no more doomed than she already was coming in as a 2-time winner. So let her just be out there, be big. One of Tony's keys to success was, I'm going to be right in people's faces so hard that they won't take me out because they'll think that I'm the useful idiot. Now Sandra gets to be that. Now people are just like, oh, okay. I love it that these two people are fighting because that protects me. And I think Sandra is not going to hide anymore. She's going to be hiding in plain sight. It's stunning.
And I love that you brought up some of these opinions that we've been seeing, because there's two in particular that I've seen circulating this week that just really angered me. And maybe it's because these are two of my favorite players ever that are being discussed, but people being upset that Sandra talking shit is a bad social play. Have you not ever seen Sandra's seasons?
She can get loud too! What the
That's one of her most famous quotes. Her yelling at Johnny Fairplay, getting out of the shelter, running to his face, and screaming at him. You're gonna tell me that this is some new wrinkle? Sandra talking trash is a new thing?
You're either with me or against me. I'm against you, Russell.
They showed you that clip in this episode. She's dumped fish out before. Like, this is who she is. She burned Russell's hat. This is the player that she's always been. She just gets a pass on it because she, much like Tyson or Courtney, that's her personality. People kind of laugh it off. You like her or you don't. And I think more often than not, people like her and they're fine with that. They think it's funny.
Yeah, and also, I think she picks her targets well.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're, going after, Haley or something like that, maybe we'll be like, yeah, not cool. And I will say, like, maybe the one potential not cool is, like, Sierra didn't need that shot. It's like, but yeah, and I don't think, just to your point, it's like, yeah, her yelling at Tony on the way out doesn't change any perception that anybody would have had of her. And also, the cat is already out of the bag that Sandra's coming out here to play. People who are sitting there like, oh my God, she just put together a counter alliance in 15 minutes.
Yeah, and first of all, awesome confessional by Varner to point out how quickly Sandra moved for someone that's whole strategy is supposedly to let others dictate the votes. Talking trash to Tony on the way out, of all the people that might respect that, even if in the moment he probably didn't love it, come on, Tony would do the exact same thing if he'd won that round. Like, he would have done the whole come at the king, you best not miss thing if he had taken her out in that situation. But that leads into my other point, which is there's another opinion that circulated from none other than Stephen freaking Fishback, who said Tony should have just laid low. has he ever seen Tony play Survivor? Because it's like telling Fishback to go be a lumberjack. That's just not his skill set.
Yeah, I mean, let's get into Tony. I think, we praised Sandra for, an amazing play, and I feel like that won't be our last opportunity this season. Mm-hmm. But for Tony, I will say, that was kind of got into that he was probably just doomed anyway. Yeah. I think if he does things a little differently, he did not go home in the second it wasn't the second person booted out. If he would have, as Fishback suggests, maybe laid low, he could have. But laying low, being, laid back or whatever, for one, it's just not in his nature. He is the Scorpion. He's going to sting you. But more than that, that would prevent him from winning. For Tony Vlachos to win, he needs to push. Now, maybe there could have been a little bit of balance. Maybe it's more like you don't brace a player like Sandra. And I think Tony has learned that lesson. And if he just doesn't do that, then I could see that people still would have found him useful, kept him around. But if you neuter Tony, he has no chance to win. Right. And I think what also happens, it wasn't that big a deal of what he did. When he went up and talked to them, it was a mistake. He was wrong. It shouldn't have happened that way. And it wasn't even people that were working against him. But it's clear that anytime he was going to do anything like that, it was like, okay, that's it. We got to get rid of Tony. Because of how quickly and easily the vote turned against him. That people who, thought Tony was part of their plans were just like, yeah, okay. And I think that's why I say he could have done better to stick around in the game, and then who knows? Maybe a few breaks happen, he gets on a good swap, doesn't go to Tribal Council for a while, gets an idol. So in that sense, maybe for a few days it would have been okay to not necessarily lay low, but lay a little lower. Because I think he was actually already starting to get a little bit of leeway with people. That's like, that's Tony doing his crazy thing. But once it was just turned up just a little bit, everybody's like, you know what? Playing with Tony is going to be too hard for us. Let's just cut bait and try again tomorrow.
Yeah, and the problem is, and we mentioned this in the preview, there's nothing believable that Tony could really do to make himself less threatening. Because as you said, all it took was Tony saying hey, let's do this. And suddenly it's like, oh yeah, that's right. Tony's calling shots. Tony's kind of a threat. Yeah, I'm okay with this vote to take him out. I think if anything, weirdly, starting the game by saying, I'm off to look for idols and running into the forest, I feel like that actually might have helped him. You're Tony, hang a lantern on it.
Yeah, no, I actually absolutely think that helped him, and I think it helped him bond with people and move in. Now people can talk with him, and I think it probably just released some tension. I think everybody's like, oh God, it's Tony. But yeah, when he does that at that exact moment at 4 a.m. to Sandra, it just reinforces the fear everybody has of Tony, along with probably the fear and the paranoia that he'd been engendering the whole time, which, we should add, is a key to his game. That is how he won Cagayan, is by making everybody feel scared, right?
But scared of targets that he sets for them.
Yeah. Whereas now, they're like, no, that's whatever. Yeah, let's just get rid of him. Because, they should have just gotten rid of him. And, people can absolutely say to us, I told you so, because we denied that he would necessarily be a first target, and he was of a first targets. I'm not going to necessarily claim victory, except for the people that were hard set on first vote, it's got to be him. You guys were wrong. But, baked into our maybe Tony could survive a bit was not going to Tribal Council twice.
Or finding the idol. I mean, which no doubt he was trying to do. He just wasn't successful.
Yeah, and frankly, it sounds like the idol isn't there yet. Judging by previews for next week. So it's just I just don't think Tony ever had a shot in this game. And frankly, he shouldn't have had a shot, I think if he plays a little bit calmer or just a little bit more trusting of even just Sandra, for instance, he's probably still in the game right now. But if Tony's stuff don't work, then it just doesn't work. And I think it's pretty obvious it wasn't going to work with these people, and, good for them.
Yeah, and I mean, we said that alliance that briefly materialized would have been the right path for him. But, once he hears Sandra saying his name, I understand immediately losing trust in her. It's not like Sandra is the most loyal of allies.
Yeah, and also, that's the point. It's if people are talking at 3 a.m, they're scheming probably. Mm-hmm. And then I understand hearing your name. I understand getting, nervous or whatever. It's just, that's not the time to do it. And it sounds like from his exit interviews, it's in part because he's Tony, tried to get closer to them. He was sneaking up a little closer, probably doing that, military shuffle there. And they were like, Tony, what are you doing? So that's when he got up and said, yeah, like, you guys are talking about me. What do you say, Tony? And then, yeah, their lies were ridiculous. So I understand all the paranoia, especially because, Tony cannot not play with paranoia. I do think another tactical error he made, again, to the point, I don't know if any of this would have mattered. It sounds like people were just ready, on alert to get rid of Tony because they're not idiots. 5 people wasn't enough for that alliance. You needed at least one more, and we know this because that left 4 people for one of them to go pick up, right?
Yep.
By leaving 4 people on the out, Sandra was just like, all right, cool. I'll just go work with them. That's easy for me. So if we would have brought like Michaela in and made it like a strong 6, then Sandra might not have had such an easy way to flip it into her advantage. She might have had to stick with this, alliance of elites.
Yeah. Well, here's a fun thing though. I'm sure you remember in the Cagayan finale, we had said one of the major benefits of that Tony win was going to be that we were going to see people trying and failing to imitate the Tony game, and it was just going to be magnificent to watch. Tony just did it.
Yeah. And I think, more than anything, that's probably it, is that he wanted to top himself.
Yeah.
Impossible, man. You can't top what you just did, especially against people that are ready for it. So, maybe he didn't tone it down a bit in the sense of, work a bit more social game and then do all your Tony stuff, because the key to Tony is that he's always pushing for any little advantage. That go into the next thing we'll talk about. But yeah, it's like, the spy bunker and all that. Nah, dude, you don't need to go out of your way to entertain us, man. You're that good. It's gonna happen. Let it happen organically. Because frankly, a lot of his successful ploys throughout Cagayan were the ones that happened organically. He went in there with the idea of spy shacks. Obviously, I can't confirm or deny how successful those were. They were successful in me saying he had a 0% chance of winning. It's like, just be out there and you're gonna come up with stuff, man. That's what you do.
Yeah, and that's the thing is when you sleep an hour a night, you got, 5-6 hours to think of whatever you want to do in that day, think more in the moment.
The goblin that's talking to you at some point will give you something. Transitioning, as we said, first year, what we're going to do is talk about biggest highlight in their entire time on Survivor. Tony's got a lot to choose from. What do you got?
Oh my God. How do you pick one Tony moment? I mean, it's like picking the LeBron highlight and saying, well, it's the block because,
It's the block.
It is the block, but it just...
There's still a lot of other ones, but it's the block.
But how is there just one? Because he's so great. Same with Tony. I mean, it's just... Cagayan was his highlight reel. I mean, the whole thing was just fantastic. The problem is, do you go with Tony crazy strategist or do you go with Tony crazy entertaining character? Because he's both and he's great and he's all that in one. But how do you not say Tony doing the llama thing?
I was hoping you'd say that, especially, for the balance of the show that you, tend to lean more on the entertainment aspects because it's great. It's just the high energy of Tony and just like, and frankly, I think it shows that it's like how he gets away with some stuff because, well, Cass was feeling a little burned at that moment. Everybody else is like, oh, this freaking guy.
Even Cass, who's the brunt of that, kind of laughs at it.
She cracked a smile, and this is Cass, the psycho murderer who never shows emotion.
She's like, you got me. Okay. That was good.
No, that's great. I went with a strategic moment, so it's good. At least we're gonna, highlight the two sides of Tony.
Yeah, I should even point out, by the way, that ever since then, that specific llama sound has been at the end of our podcast and will probably remain there forever.
Yes. For me, it's when he bluffed that his Tyler Perry idol could be used at the Final Four.
Oh, so good.
And I think it's underrated because, people more think of maybe moves like, voting out LJ or something like that. But here he is given the most powerful idol in the history of the show. But the show also did one more thing. They introduced the element of mystery. Now, most people, I'd say, maybe practically every other person that's ever played Survivor would be like, cool, I've got the most powerful idol in the history. And, been okay with that. Left it there, if you will. But not Tony Vlachos. Tony Vlachos is like, wait, there's this other thing that might give me another advantage. And he spits out the lie as convincing as everything because, He's lying all the time. It's not that hard for him. And frankly, even people, when they know he's lying, they're not sure, which part of it is a lie, or if he's lying that he's lying and that he's lying. But this is just like, and it can protect me till Final Four. And if you're there, you're just kind of like, oh man, I guess it's true. And so he gets the most powerful idol that can protect him from basically any vote, and he finds a way to make it protect him one more vote.
Yeah, and again, that's the Tony thing, is like, he's scheming for every possible advantage, and in that moment, he realizes their lack of information about what I have is the advantage. They don't know what the note says. I can tell them it says whatever I want it to say. They know it's a special idol in some way. I can determine what the rules are that makes it special. And it was a brilliant move. Like you said, underrated, because he's got so many other moves that he made that were great.
Yeah, and to highlight how special it is, think of the other people who subsequently have gotten an advantage in the game. None of them came up with anything good, Yeah, like, to be fair to a couple of them, somebody we want to be fair to and somebody we don't want to be fair to. Dan and Stevens were at least publicly aired. They didn't have the advantage of nobody knowing that they had the advantage, but nobody knew what that advantage was, and by all indications, they just didn't tell anybody. They was like, I'm not going to say anything. Adam gets an advantage, and like, his big plan is, I'm going to tell my biggest rival exactly what this is. But nobody's come up with like good lies. He did, when he didn't even have to lie about it. Nobody needed to know, A, that he even had the idol, or B, that it did more than the incredibly powerful thing it did. So it's not easy to come up with lies that will convince people like that. And he did that. And, it just makes me, remember his, during Kagiyan, obviously, we had, a DMing relationship with Tony, which, I should, probably say that we're fairly well aware that he was probably communicating with many different podcasts and websites. But I will say maybe, the tenor of our, communication might have been a bit better, because we were one of the few that were like, man, this guy's awesome.
Hey, we were pretty early on convinced, like, oh my god, he's gonna win.
Yeah, like, we weren't just like, oh, get a load of this guy, he's a fantastic entertainment. We're like, you know what? This stuff makes sense in a crazy way. And, I think the fact that it's crazy is why it makes sense.
Yeah, I remember talking through the LJ vote and beginning with, it was the general consensus, like, what is he doing? He's insane. And I think we started there, and within like a few minutes of talking it out, went, wait a minute, this is kind of brilliant. And
yeah, well, we had the advantage of like a day, right? So my first, like, what is he doing? And I'm like, maybe. And part of that is because we had already started conditioning ourselves. It's like, there's a method to this madness. And the fact that, it's so unusual is what's making us effective. But the reason why I bring it up is because, he told us that if we had any questions about what's going on, ask. And as long as there's no spoilers, he would tell us, which works perfectly for us because we do not want spoilers whatsoever, right?
Right.
So when he gets the Tyler Perry idol, we do what we do as the fans. We started thinking about scenarios and this, and we're only going to protect in the final five. And then I'm like, well, actually, the show never said final five, right? They didn't read out the full note, or they just explained the unique powers of this thing, which, as we all know, not particularly unique. Mm-hmm. The last time this exact idol existed, it was good to Final Four. So I was like, maybe it's Final Four. Probably Final Five, maybe Final Four. So we're like, this seems to be a safe thing that we could ask Tony about. Because, it's not spoilery so much as the show just didn't, explain it because it's Final Five. Of course it's Final Five. Mm-hmm. So we ask him, how long can you use the idol to? And then he's like, oh, sorry guys, I can't tell you. That'd be spoilers. Stay tuned. I'm like, what could be spoilery about that?
Right. Like, it's just a rule. Like, why is that a spoiler?
A rule, like, and they're like, well, how is it going to come up? Or is there going to be a scene where they're like, yeah, of course it's Final Five. And then it happens. I'm like, oh my God, this guy. He somehow found a way to make this even more. So yeah, that for me, that's the highlight, because it just, in a nutshell, just shows what made Tony so great, in that he's just always gonna, try for another, 1% advantage, a little bit more. Sometimes it doesn't matter, sometimes it won't pay off, but one of those times, it's gonna be the difference, and this is the time. It got him to Final Four, and then, one more crazy thing got him to the end.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, he keeps throwing things at the wall, and not all of them stick. I mean, it's not everything he does is necessarily advancing his game, but he tries so many things then eventually he hits on a few that do.
Yeah, and then to circle back to our other discussion of like, oh, maybe Tony should tone it down. It's like, but again, a toned down Tony doesn't do well in Survivor because he needs to do these things.
And from a viewing perspective, who wants to see that?
Exactly. All right. So speaking of a secret advantage that one could use to their advantage.
What advantages are for?
Yeah. There was another one this episode, and it fell in the hands of Sierra Yawn Thomas.
Oh, Sierra did a thing-ish.
She picked something up from the ground. The most passive way of getting an advantage was tailor-made for Sierra Yawn Thomas.
And it's a nice passive advantage, too. It's the ideal advantage for her to have because you don't really have to do anything except exist.
That's right. I look forward to every confessional they give her of her talking about how she's going to use this thing. Oh, I can't wait. These people are going to be surprised when I use my advantage. I'm totally going to use my advantage. She's not going to use that advantage.
It's going to be great. And I tweeted this too, but it's just fun as a fan who's not super excited for her to be like, ooh, I wonder who she'll give that to when she gets voted out. Fingers crossed.
That's right. Now all our faves are like, I hope they start talking to Sierra.
Yeah.
They see that she's a good goat and then they can get her advantage that they could play one or the other time because...
Yep. What a weird advantage. It's just an odd way to structure that advantage. I mean, I get the little twist on the legacy advantage that they had last season, which was pretty inept. Or inert, I should say.
Both.
It would be a both. But it's just, I still don't feel like it's got most of the same problems that it had last time. I mean, you're still going to have to remember, oh, this can be played at one of these two votes, and then you're going to have to, remember, oh, how many players are there left now? Is it 14? Okay, so it's not this one. It's not narratively a great thing to have.
No, and then on top of that, the way it broke is that we have to remember the most forgettable player in the game has it. So
right.
They have this forgettable tool. I mean, I get when they were excited about the idea. They were trying it. It didn't exactly backfire, but then when they saw it played, it was, completely anticlimactic. So it's like, all right, no, let's give it one more try. You can do it this other hyper specific time. And it's just like, it would have been better. I mean, honestly, the better thing is just, this is a swing and a miss. But, like a range of times, perhaps, right? If you are still in the game at, the merge, or if you're still in the game for these votes, then you can use these votes. Because then it also becomes a decision. And I think in here they introduce decision, right?
Right.
Do I play it at this exact moment, or do I hope that I'm still in the end? But that's not enough of a decision. And if, whoever is in possession of this legacy advantage, it's going to be fun dedicating portions of the merge for them discussing. Should I play it now or later?
Right. But let's take a look around the rest of the show. Is there anybody in particular that you felt like we needed to discuss this week?
I think, Michaela got a little bit of shine, and mostly because they were, trying to make us believe that it wasn't 100% certainty that it was Sierra. But I think in both, the case of how she reacted to being the extra vote, which, is understandable as human. Nobody wants their name, to be the bait because, sometimes that hurts you.
Sure.
Sierra herself was not going to let her name be bait in her first season, so she tried to outvote, get secondary votes on somebody else. But people noticed that she was not being a team player. It's probably not a good look for her. And then the way she sulked at the end of the challenge, with Malcolm, I think this might be a problem for her. Like, as much as it was a problem in her first season and how she's identified that, she just isn't good at lying and people can read her. With these players, I think it won't take long for people to be like, I don't think we can work with Michaela.
See, I think Michaela's lack of chill is part of why she's there.
Absolutely. I mean, it's already great television. It's already led to a few things, but for, gameplay. Anyway, continue.
You can't contain greatness, Andy.
Yeah, absolutely not.
And that's the other thing, too, is I feel like she sells herself short by saying that, she's only there to be good at challenges, which, to her credit, actually might work to her advantage because she keeps loudly making this claim and people are going to see, oh yeah, she's good in the challenges, and it might help them underestimate her. I don't actually think that's her strategy. I think that she legitimately believes that and she's selling herself short. But Michaela's just a very entertaining player. And I think that if you can realize that she's going to be loyal and she doesn't take L's very well, you can probably work with her. And I feel like there's going to be some people that are willing to do it, and she could go far. But it is a little bit concerning that we've got a little exposure for her this early.
Yeah, a quick point about her selling herself short. She didn't get to see how entertaining she was on television. So, yeah, from her own personal experience, she might be like, yeah, okay, they chose me for physical reasons. Cause
sure,
she doesn't know that, she's head and shoulders more entertaining than everybody else. Maybe she just assumes like that's just how it goes. Like, I know I'm great, but isn't everybody? No.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We have lots of proof.
But yeah, and like, her honesty could help you, certainly, if she's your alliance partner, until it's time for you to do something a little trickier. This is the tie problem, too, right? It's just like, well, yeah. I need you to lie. And like, even a tribal council, I think she's the one that might have tipped Sierra off as like, oh, I'm going home. At the whole, I know I'm getting one vote. It's like, why do you know that? You should know that. So it could be that, she's a good alliance partner for the reason that's like, I can read her. If things start to go south with her, I'll know it. But she might be a bad alliance partner because it's like, dude, have some chill, man. We are trying to be subtle here. There's an active subterfuge going on here. And, there's been yet to any evidence that she is capable of such a thing.
But there has been plenty of evidence that she's entertaining. And because she's my girl, she came through for me by asking Troy, is that your real name? Between that and calling Sierra that tall girl, Michaela's just the best.
Well, I hope she hangs long enough, and if all we get from her is just, a few shade here or there, awesome. I think she is already starting to get into a trap that sadly Sandra is also. It's like, enough with the catchphrases, it's clever once, but now, cause she's like, bye Felicia again. It's like, you already had your bye Felicia moment. To her credit, she does not know if that made the air. But I feel like if it had, it would only embolden her more to say it. It's like,
True.
I love her saying the queen stays the queen, adios, but you can't keep saying it. I have no problem with arrogance. I have no problem with gloating. I have a problem with repetition. It offends my sensibilities in that sense.
But I did like the parting shot, say hi to Sierra for me. That was a good little tag to add on to the end.
I liked it for a shot at Tony. It's just kind of like, if anybody was like feeling bad about voting out Sierra, note, I don't think anybody was feeling bad about voting out Sierra. They might have been like, man, that's not cool. Are you going to talk about me like that when I'm gone? Starts with Michaela. Anybody else you wanted the quick hits on?
Yeah, just real briefly. Andrea, I like that when Probst asked her about the rule change, she instantly had a response. It just gave me some confidence that Andrea is like ready to play this game. She's nice and perceptive, quick on her feet. And JT, as expected, not really catching a ton of heat early. And I'm telling you, screwing up heroes versus villains is going to help him.
Yeah, it would be interesting because I do think that he might screw himself in the very next episode. But I agree, at this moment, he was in a great place. He could have done whatever he wanted to, without having to really be the decision maker like he was in Heroes versus Villains. To our point, Sari would have been a unanimous vote, I think. And I think an advantage of losing Sierra is I might not keep screwing up his names the whole time, but I can't promise anything. I think Malcolm is doing the right thing he needs to do right now. He's amassing shields, and everybody's talking to him. Everybody wants to work with him. He was almost on the outside when Sandra was forming that counter strike, but I think he very easily and quickly folded right back into it, and I think he has a lot of paths to go.
That's the nice thing for Malcolm, is that he's got so many options. And we identified that in the preview, too. It's just, you can see so many people that Malcolm can work with and that he could easily shift from one group to another. And it's going to pay off for him. I don't see any way that he's not getting far into this game. I won't say he'll win, but how does he not at least make it deep into the merge?
Yeah, and basically if he puts himself out there, which, he's said many times, I don't like playing subtle, I'm going to take my shots. If he takes the wrong shot, then maybe, he goes down. But I think he's in a good spot. I liked what I saw from Varner from a social perspective. I did not like what I saw from Varner from a physical perspective. And I mean, some of that was just poor, strategy by the whole team. You didn't need two good shooters, Mm-hmm. But maybe you also see, like, Varner's useless at shooting because he was useless out there as well, at least in the untying portion. Yeah, he was able to help drag the snake over, so there was some benefit there, but if he continues to struggle in physical things, he's about to have less room to hide. Anybody else?
No, that's it. Let's get to the predictions because, like you said, they're about to have less room to hide. We got a swap coming next week.
Yeah, so it's 3 teams of 6. There's no mystery here. Probst said in the preseason that they were doing this at the 3rd episode, going to 3 teams. Because of that, we don't know that all the way they're going to break, although the preview for next week basically gave away 1 team. 1 prediction. Just pick 1 person. That's all we get to do.
Yeah, and it's so you don't even know what the tribes are, much less who's going to lose the challenge.
Right, and we barely have any storylines to work with because, this was dominated by, starting the season, telling a bit of Sierra's story, and I think the show was lingering on Sierra quite a bit in that episode, just like camera shots and all that, which also helped with the fact that it's like, this girl's gone. Yeah. And then, if you have Tony versus Sandra, you're going to do an episode about Tony versus Sandra.
Oh, hell yeah.
So yeah, we barely even have anything to go with, and I'm fine with that in some respects because if they had given us more, it would barely even matter. Everything is going to get shuffled in one way or another. It's like we're starting almost anew.
All right. So again, don't know how tribes are going to break at all. So because I don't know that, I'm going to kind of roll forward my prediction from last week. I'll say it's going to be Debbie.
All right. Because we don't really know anything, I'm just going to take a wild stab and frankly go with something that I would like to happen because I don't know. I don't feel like there's a good chance I'll be right either way. I know some people are like Saria's still doomed or things might look weird for JT in the preview. But another thing that I think I saw in the preview, and unfortunately I haven't been able to rewatch the preview because I think CBS just has it and they don't let non-Americans watch their content. Did we see like Troy going after a goat?
How appropriate. Yes, we saw somebody going after a goat. I don't recall that it was Troy.
Yeah, so, my prediction hinges on that, and, if I'm wrong, just tell me, and whatever, I still want to predict this. He gets and kills a goat, it horrifies people, and they're just like, let's just get rid of this guy. So I'm gonna predict that Troy goes home, why not?
Oh, you're making my day.
Except that I'm horrible at this,
yes. Oh well, I should have predicted it, and then maybe it would have happened.
Alright, so, let us know your predictions. Let us know what you think were the best moments in the history of Sierra or Tony, and you can do that on our website, which is Kraken.
Oh, we're blowing up lately. We've got insane amounts of visitors. So welcome, new people. We got a lot of new people joining us in the comments. It's purplerockpodcast.com if that wasn't totally clear. You can also find us on Twitter. The show is at Purple Rock Pod. I am at Purple Rock John.
I am Purple Rock Andy. The co-host of our earlier podcast this week was Purple Rock Emma. And rounding out our team is Purple Rock Matt and Purple Rock Mark. Same guy, 2 different Twitter handles.
We do have an email address. It's purplerockpodcast@gmail.com if you wanted to email us for some reason. Give us questions for upcoming shows, whatever you'd like to do.
The Survivor fantasy game that we run every year, where you pick 4 players, and as long as nobody else has those 4, that's yours. You have until the beginning of next week's episode to change your team. So if you had high hopes for Tony, like we did, yep. Or if you just kind of like, sure, Sierra, like some people I think did, I don't know the numbers, you might want to make a change on that. So the deadline is coming up. We are going to go back to the final 4 of our Ultimate Survivor winner bracket sometime soon after you listen to this. You can subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcatchers, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. And if you're one of the many people that have been visiting our sites, we welcome you. It's great to have you. Of course, all this increase in traffic leads to an increase in bandwidth. So if you'd like to support us, you can do so by buying things on Amazon, and we get a small cut of that, and I can never remember how they do that.
There's a link on our website. If you just go there, there's a nice big Amazon link. Just click on that and then start shopping as you normally would.
All right, so I think that covers it all. Thank you again for listening. I'm excited for this season, unless it's going to just be every week a painful stat. Anything else?
No, that's it. Let's hit that theme music.
And listen to some llama.
That's what it's like when a woman wants a baby.